The extraterrestrial vampire princess shocked everyone. Declaring the human as her spouse, the stars glittered like 1,000 distant eyes as the human delegation's starship descended through the swirling atmosphere of Violia. The planet's surface shimmered with colors no human eye had ever witnessed, vast forests of crystalline trees reflecting light in every shade of the spectrum, rivers that gleamed like liquid silver, and skies painted with streaks of violet and green. Humanity had never seen anything like this. And yet, amid all the alien splendor, there was an undeniable tension aboard the ship. Ethan Cole, a young diplomat and scientist representing Earth, leaned against the observation window, absorbing the beauty and the strangeness. His heart raced, not from fear, but from anticipation. Humanity had waited decades for this moment, first contact with a civilization far older and far more advanced than their own. But this was more than a diplomatic mission. This was a chance to prove that humans, often underestimated across the galaxy, could hold their own among the stars. Behind him, the rest of the human delegation prepared for the reception. Every member wore their formal attire, a simple combination of earth fabrics and subtle electronics that marked their status without being ostentatious. Their collective nervous energy buzzed in the air, but Ethan felt calm. He had spent years studying alien cultures, languages, and behaviors. Still, nothing could have prepared him for what awaited them. The landing was smooth. As the ramp descended, a breeze of warm, scented air flowed across the ship's interior. The humans stepped onto Violia's surface and were immediately surrounded by the planet's native beings. They were tall and elegant, their skin shimmering faintly under the strange light, eyes reflecting wisdom and caution in equal measure. At the center of the welcoming crowd was a figure who stood above the rest, not just in height, but in presence. Lyra, the vampire princess of Violia, radiated an aura of authority and mystery. She was unlike anything Ethan had ever encountered, her skin pale but glowing, eyes a deep shade of amethyst, hair falling like liquid night over her shoulders. Though centuries had passed in her world, she carried herself with the grace of someone eternally poised. And yet there was something in her gaze that seemed almost playful, almost curious, as if she were examining a puzzle she hadn't yet solved. The humans bowed respectfully, a gesture met with polite acknowledgement by the aliens. Lyra's attendant stepped aside, and she moved forward, her motion smooth and deliberate. When she stopped in front of Ethan, silence fell. Not a whisper, not a rustle, just the sound of hearts beating faster. Then she spoke, her voice clear and melodic, carrying across the plaza without need for amplification. "I declare this human, Ethan Cole, as my spouse." Delegates from other planets gasped, murmurs rose among Violia's elite, and Ethan's colleagues froze in shock. Humans were not known for forming unions with extraterrestrials, let alone with a being as powerful and ancient as Lyra. Ethan blinked, unsure if he had heard correctly. He had been trained for countless scenarios, hostile encounters, diplomatic crises, cultural misunderstandings, but nothing in his preparation covered this. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. Lyra's gaze met his, and a faint smile played on her lips. "Do not fear, human. It is not mere fancy. I have chosen you for reasons that concern both our worlds. You and your kind hold potential that even we have long observed with interest." Ethan finally found his voice. "Princess Lyra, I am honored, but I am not sure I understand. Why me? You will need courage, wisdom, and clarity of heart. Humans are often underestimated, yet they survive and thrive in conditions no other species dares face. It is precisely their ingenuity and resilience that make this human suitable. He is not alone in this, of course, for your people's actions will influence the outcome, but he has the spark that matters most." He had spent his life studying challenges that seemed impossible, solving problems others believed insurmountable. Perhaps this was just another challenge, though on an interstellar scale he had never imagined. The ceremony continued, though the focus remained on Ethan and Lyra. Alien dignitaries approached cautiously, offering gestures of respect. Some were friendly, others skeptical, yet all watched intently to see how the human would respond. Ethan bowed in return, keeping his expression neutral. After the formalities, Lyra led Ethan to a quiet terrace overlooking the crystalline forests. The air shimmered with alien light, casting soft shadows across their faces. "Do not be afraid of what has been set in motion," she said. "I will guide you, but it is your choices that will define the path. This is not a union of convenience. It is a partnership, one that requires understanding, courage, and trust." Then the journey begins. They were guests on a planet of unimaginable beauty and complexity, yet the announcement had changed everything. They were no longer just diplomats. They were representatives of a species whose potential had been questioned for centuries, now thrust into a spotlight that could alter galactic history. That evening, Ethan wandered the palace gardens, reflecting on the day's events. The gardens were vast, filled with bioluminescent plants that pulsed softly in the dim light. He paused by a fountain, its water flowing in patterns that seemed almost alive. The magnitude of what had just happened pressed on him. He was now part of something far greater than himself, something that demanded not only intelligence but moral courage. He thought of humanity, its struggles, its ingenuity, its capacity for compassion and creativity. Perhaps Lyra had seen the same qualities, the spark that had allowed humans to survive against odds that no other species could endure. That spark had brought them here to Violia to stand among beings of unimaginable power. Meanwhile, across the palace, Lyra observed the human from a distance. She sensed his curiosity, his intelligence, and most importantly, his resilience. Many humans would have frozen under the weight of such responsibility, but he was already thinking of solutions, of strategies, of ways to turn this unusual circumstance into an opportunity. She could feel it in his mind, a clarity that set him apart. And yet, danger lingered unseen. There were factions within Violia who opposed human influence, who believed that the ancient order should remain unchallenged. Their whispers carried through the palace corridors like shadows, plotting, waiting for a moment to act. Lyra knew that the announcement had set wheels in motion that could not be stopped, and she had chosen carefully, knowing that humans could rise to the challenge. Ethan, unaware of the immediate dangers, returned to his quarters, reviewing the day's events and the diplomatic protocols he had studied for years. He realized that this was not just about survival, it was about proving humanity's worth on a galactic stage. Their actions, their ingenuity, their spirit would be tested in ways no one could have imagined. As night fell over Violia, the stars above seemed to shine brighter, almost as if acknowledging the arrival of a new force in their midst. Ethan lay awake, thoughts racing, aware that the world he had known was now only a memory. The future belonged to the choices he would make, the courage he would show, and the bonds he would form. By the first light of Violia's dawn, humanity had been marked forever. Ethan Cole, a single human among centuries-old beings of immense power, had been thrust into a union that defied expectations, challenged traditions, and promised to change the course of history. And though he did not yet understand the full extent of what was to come, he felt a spark of determination burning within him, a spark that he realized was the same spark that had always defined his people. The journey had begun, and there was no turning back. The day after the shocking announcement, Violia's palace buzzed with activity. Aliens of all kinds moved through the halls, whispering in their musical language, casting glances toward the human delegation. Ethan Cole felt the weight of countless eyes on him as he walked alongside Lyra, the vampire princess. Every step was measured, every gesture scrutinized. Yet Ethan did not falter. He had promised to honor the trust Lyra had placed in him, and he intended to prove himself worthy. Lyra led him to a large chamber, its walls covered in shifting patterns of light that seemed alive. "Today, "You will begin your first trials," she said, her voice calm but commanding. "These are not tests of strength alone. They are challenges that require intelligence, creativity, and courage, the very qualities your kind is known for. Remember, it is not only about survival. It is about proving that humans can contribute something unique to our world." He would be measured against beings whose knowledge spanned centuries, who could manipulate energy and matter in ways humans could barely imagine. Yet deep inside, he felt something familiar, a spark of determination that had driven humanity to explore, to survive, to reach for the stars despite all odds. The first trial took place in a room filled with alien technology. Holographic displays floated in midair, showing complex patterns and calculations that twisted and shifted faster than the human eye could follow. Lyra explained that Ethan was to decipher a sequence that would unlock the room's central control system. Many aliens had failed, overwhelmed by the speed and complexity of the task. Ethan approached the floating symbols cautiously. He studied the patterns, looking for logical sequences. While the symbols appeared chaotic, he noticed subtle repetitions, patterns that repeated every few moments. His training in mathematics, computer logic, and problem-solving guided his hands as he manipulated the controls. Slowly, deliberately, he aligned the sequences. The room hummed as the symbols settled into a correct configuration. A central console opened, revealing a small crystal sphere glowing with bright light. Lyra's eyes narrowed slightly, observing him. "You have done well, human. Many with longer lifespans would have failed." She nodded in approval. "Your ability to see patterns, to adapt quickly, is rare even among my people." The second trial awaited, a negotiation with alien delegates who opposed the human presence. The council had invited leaders from multiple species who viewed humans as fragile and insignificant. Their goal was to challenge Ethan's ability to think, speak, and persuade under pressure. The room was vast, circular, with each delegate seated at a glowing table. Ethan entered, taking care to bow respectfully. Lyra stood behind him, silent but present, her gaze sharp. The alien leaders spoke first, questioning humanity's worth and its right to be considered equal partners in galactic affairs. Some mocked humans for their short lifespans. Others doubted their ability to handle the complexities of interstellar diplomacy. Ethan listened carefully, noting their concerns. He spoke with calm authority, acknowledging the points raised but emphasizing humanity's unique qualities. "Humans are not the longest-lived or the strongest species," he said, his voice steady. "But we adapt, we learn, and we innovate. When faced with impossible odds, we find solutions that others cannot see. It is this creativity, resilience, and determination that allows us to survive and thrive. These qualities are not measured by age or size, but by the ability to act wisely and decisively." Ethan continued, proposing a series of hypothetical solutions to potential interstellar crises, each demonstrating human ingenuity. He spoke of resource management, conflict resolution, and technological innovation, showing that humans could think quickly, creatively, and strategically under pressure. By the end of the session, the room was quiet. The council had expected uncertainty, hesitation, perhaps even fear, but instead they had witnessed confidence, intelligence, and clarity. Ethan had not only defended his species but had impressed the very beings who doubted him most. After the negotiation, Lyra escorted Ethan to the final trial, a survival scenario on the planet's outer terrain. They arrived at a jagged landscape where sharp crystalline rocks jutted from the ground, glowing faintly with internal light. Streams of molten energy flowed through deep fissures, releasing heat and light that warped the surrounding air. "You must reach the top of the ridge and retrieve the flag," Lyra explained. "Many before you have failed. Only those who combine observation, careful planning, and courage can succeed." He adjusted his approach, identifying stable paths, observing the rhythm of the energy streams, and using his knowledge of physics to predict which surfaces could support his weight. Step by step, he advanced, avoiding hazards that could easily crush or trap him. His focus never wavered. Along the way, he encountered strange creatures native to Violia, massive and translucent, yet curious rather than hostile. Ethan calmly assessed their behavior, understanding that aggression would not serve him. By anticipating their actions and respecting their space, he passed without conflict. Finally, he reached the ridge, the flag glowing in his hand. Lyra watched silently from below, her expression unreadable. As he descended safely, she nodded once, a gesture of respect. "You have succeeded," she said simply. "This is not merely physical skill. You have shown observation, adaptability, and restraint, qualities that are rare and precious." He had faced challenges that many species would have failed, and he had succeeded through intelligence, patience, and courage, traits that defined humanity. The trials, however, were only the beginning. That evening, as the Violean sun dipped below crystalline horizons, Ethan attended a council meeting with Lyra and the supportive delegates. The opposing factions were quiet, observing, wary of challenging the human further. Ethan realized that his actions had begun to shift perceptions. Humans were no longer seen as weak or insignificant. They were a species capable of ingenuity, strategy, and courage in the face of unimaginable odds. During the meeting, Lyra spoke openly of her reasons for choosing him. "Humans possess a spark that even my kind has long observed but never fully understood. You adapt, create, and persevere. These are qualities that can shape the future of Violia and beyond. It is not your lifespan, nor your strength, but your ability to rise above limitations that matters most." Ethan understood that Lyra's faith in him was not blind. She had chosen wisely, knowing that humanity's value was not in raw power, but in creativity, cooperation, and determination. That night, Ethan walked through the palace gardens, reflecting on the trials and the day's revelations. The glowing plants pulsed softly, illuminating his path. He realized that this journey was about more than proving himself. It was about proving humanity. Each decision, each action carried the weight of his entire species. And yet, for the first time, he felt hope. Humans had been underestimated for centuries, but here, on Violia, their worth was becoming clear. As he looked toward the horizon, he knew the path ahead would be fraught with challenges. Not everyone welcomed humanity's arrival. Opposing factions lurked in the shadows, plotting and waiting for an opportunity to strike. Yet, armed with intelligence, courage, and creativity, humans had the power to overcome these obstacles. And with Lyra by his side, Ethan felt that even the most insurmountable trials could be faced. Lyra watched him from a balcony above, sensing his thoughts. She understood that the human's determination was genuine. He had not only survived the trials but had done so with integrity and ingenuity, qualities that her kind often lacked. In his calm approach to danger and challenge, she saw the spark that could change the course of her world. Far across the palace, whispers of admiration and doubt continued. Some Violins questioned the wisdom of a human entering their society at such a high level. Others began to hope, curious to see how a species so young could influence centuries-old traditions. Ethan's success in the trials had already begun to shift the balance. Humanity's reputation was growing, not as fragile newcomers, but as capable, intelligent, and courageous allies. And so, as the twin moons of Violia rose high above the crystalline forests, Ethan prepared for the days ahead. More trials awaited, not only tests of skill or diplomacy, but challenges that could determine the fate of both humans and Violians. Yet, for the first time, he was not overwhelmed. He carried with him the confidence of survival, the spark of ingenuity, and the knowledge that humans, despite their limitations, could shine brighter than even the oldest civilizations. The journey was only beginning, and the galaxy had not yet seen the full extent of humanity's potential. The morning sun cast long, golden beams across the crystalline forests of Violia. Ethan Cole awoke with a sense of purpose stronger than ever. The trials of the previous day had proven humanity's worth to some, but he knew that not all eyes were friendly. Whispers of doubt persisted among the Virelian council, and in the shadows, rival factions stirred, their resentment growing with each sign of human competence. Lyra met him in the palace courtyard, her expression unreadable but her presence commanding. "Today, you will face your first real challenge," she said. "It is not merely a test of skill but of leadership. You will need to guide a group, make quick decisions, and demonstrate the qualities that make humans remarkable." Leadership under pressure was not new to him. In his own world, humans had thrived through collaboration, ingenuity, and courage. He would need all of these qualities and more to succeed here. The task was deceptively simple at first glance. A remote region of Virelia had been struck by a natural disaster. A sudden seismic tremor had caused vast crystalline cliffs to collapse, cutting off vital energy flows and leaving alien communities isolated. Humans had been invited, or perhaps challenged, to coordinate the rescue and restoration efforts. Ethan gathered a team composed of humans and friendly Virelians. They approached the disaster zone cautiously, the ground trembling beneath their feet. The cliffs glittered ominously, massive shards of crystal jutting out at every angle. The energy flows, usually calm and predictable, surged violently, threatening the settlements downstream. "Observation is key," Ethan said, surveying the terrain. "We need to understand how the energy flows are disrupted before we act. We can't rush blindly. It will make the problem worse." He mapped the terrain, identifying weak points and predicting how the energy might continue to behave. Using a combination of human intuition and alien technology, he created a plan that balanced caution with swift action. As they moved, obstacles arose. Massive shards of crystal shifted unpredictably, threatening to block the team's path. Ethan directed his group with precision, combining simple but effective strategies, ropes, energy stabilizers, and careful timing, to navigate the hazards. Virelian allies were impressed. The humans' ability to adapt quickly and find solutions they had overlooked was remarkable. At one point, a young Virelian engineer froze, paralyzed by fear when a section of unstable crystal began to collapse. Without hesitation, Ethan acted. He calculated the timing, guided the engineer to safety, and secured the falling crystal using a makeshift support system. The maneuver was risky, but it succeeded, and the engineer's gratitude was palpable. "Humans think differently," she whispered, awe in her voice. "He sees solutions we would never consider." Ethan, however, considered the problem differently. "We don't need to stop the energy," he said. "We need to redirect it, guide it safely past the settlements. The system is not broken, it's just imbalanced. If we work together, we can restore flow without causing harm." When the energy finally settled, the settlements were safe, and the Virelian engineers were amazed. Lyra watched from a distance, silently observing Ethan's performance. She knew that humans were clever, but seeing him apply instinct, logic, and courage in real time confirmed what she had long suspected. Humans were not only capable, they were exceptional. Word of the rescue spread quickly through the alien cities. Humans were no longer just guests, they were becoming partners, leaders, and problem solvers. Even skeptics began to soften, impressed by the clear results of Ethan's actions. Yet, not all reactions were positive. In the shadows, a faction opposed to the human presence plotted. They feared that the bond between Ethan and Lyra would disrupt centuries of tradition and power. "The human has shown skill," one whispered, "but skill alone does not belong to our kind. We cannot allow him to rise further. He threatens the order of Virelia itself." The successful energy redirection had stabilized the settlements, but he knew that long-term solutions required trust and cooperation among the local communities. He spent hours meeting with Virelian leaders, listening carefully, and proposing methods to prevent future disasters. His human perspective offered fresh solutions that the aliens had never considered. Slowly, bridges of understanding were built, and the community began to trust him. That evening, Ethan joined Lyra in the Palace Observatory, a vast room filled with telescopes and holographic maps of the galaxy. "You performed well today," Lyra said, "not because you are stronger than any of my people, but because you think differently. Humans have the ability to see patterns and solutions that even we sometimes overlook. That is your strength." More than that, he realized that humanity's greatest asset was not power or technology, but ingenuity, the ability to solve problems creatively, to act decisively, and to inspire others to do the same. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent message from the council. The rival faction had launched a covert attack on one of the remote settlements, hoping to undermine humanity's growing reputation. Without hesitation, Ethan gathered a team and prepared to respond. The threat was unexpected, dangerous, and required immediate action. They arrived at the settlement to find chaos. Structures were damaged, energy channels disrupted, and alien civilians panicked. The attackers were skilled, but not invincible. Ethan quickly assessed the situation, devising a strategy that relied on human adaptability and collaboration with the Violins. Using a combination of diversion tactics, technology, and coordinated movements, Ethan and his team neutralized the attackers without causing harm to the civilians. Each step demonstrated calm thinking under pressure, strategic planning, and the ability to inspire allies. The Violian defenders began to follow his lead, learning to trust the humans' instincts. When the conflict ended, the settlement leaders approached Ethan, their expressions a mix of relief and admiration. "You have done what many thought impossible," one said. "Humans are not as weak as we believed. Your courage and intelligence have saved our people." The days that followed were filled with preparations for larger challenges. Ethan continued to build relationships, solve complex problems, and demonstrate humanity's potential. The Council's perception shifted further. Humans were no longer outsiders, but valued partners, capable of contributing in ways that even Violia's oldest citizens could respect. Yet the rival factions' plotting continued. They whispered in secret, preparing for the next opportunity to test humanity's resolve. Ethan, unaware of every detail, focused on what he could control, using human ingenuity, courage, and determination to meet each new challenge. One evening, as he walked through the palace gardens, Ethan reflected on the remarkable journey he had undertaken. The initial shock of Lyra's declaration had faded, replaced by a sense of purpose. He understood now that his actions mattered not only for himself but for humanity as a whole. Every decision, every problem solved, every life protected was proof that humans could rise to meet any challenge, even on a planet so different, so ancient, and so powerful. Lyra joined him, her presence calm and reassuring. "You have done more than survive," she said. "You have shown that humanity can be a force for cooperation, innovation, and hope. Others may doubt, but your actions speak louder than words. Remember this, human. Your potential is only beginning to be realized." Humans had faced countless challenges on Earth, often overcoming the impossible with creativity, courage, and determination. Now on Violia, they were doing the same on a larger, interstellar scale. He knew that future trials would be harder, but he also knew that humanity was not fragile. They were capable, resilient, and unstoppable when united. As the twin moons of Violia rose high above the crystalline forests, Ethan felt a sense of purpose deeper than anything he had known. Humanity's journey was only beginning and the universe was watching. He would not fail. And somewhere in the shadows, the rival faction continued to plot, unaware that their attempts to undermine humanity only highlighted the very qualities that made humans extraordinary. Ingenuity, courage, and determination. These were the traits that had allowed a single human to rise among centuries-old beings and change the perception of an entire civilization. The challenge was far from over, but humanity had proven it could shine. And Ethan, hand in hand with Lyra, would ensure that their light burned brighter than anyone had ever imagined. The air on Violia was charged with tension. Weeks had passed since Ethan Cole had faced the trials, negotiated with alien factions, and stabilized the disaster zones. Humans had begun earning respect, but the rival factions' resentment had grown, simmering quietly under the surface. Rumors circulated that the faction was planning a bold strike, one that could endanger not only Ethan but the fragile trust between humans and Violia's people. Ethan was aware of the risks. He spent the morning in the palace command center, studying maps and data with Lyra at his side. The room was filled with holographic displays showing energy flows, troop movements, and the locations of Violia's cities. Every piece of information mattered. Decisions made in this room could ripple across the planet, affecting millions of lives. Lyra spoke first, her voice calm but serious. They will attempt to create chaos, human. Their goal is to prove that your species is unworthy. But you have already shown them that humans are clever and resilient. Now it is time to demonstrate it in action. If we act carefully and decisively, we can protect the people and show that humans can rise to any challenge. The attacks were precise, exploiting weaknesses in the infrastructure and aiming to destabilize both the environment and the public's confidence in human leadership. Ethan and Lyra mobilized quickly. Humans, alongside loyal Violians, raced to the threatened zones. The assaults were sophisticated, but Ethan relied on human ingenuity. He instructed teams to create temporary energy conduits, diverting power flows and preventing damage to the settlements. While Violians were initially hesitant to trust the humans' unconventional methods, they soon realized that his solutions were effective, combining logic, observation, and a flexibility that their long-trained minds often lacked. At one hub, Ethan encountered a massive energy surge about to destroy the surrounding crystal structures. Violians struggled to contain it using standard techniques, but Ethan noticed a pattern. By creating a small, calculated imbalance in the energy channels, he could redirect the surge safely. He explained the plan quickly to his team, who implemented it under his guidance. The energy stabilized, saving the hub and demonstrating the value of human adaptability. Elsewhere, Violian engineers struggled with blocked channels and collapsing bridges. Ethan coordinated rescue and repair teams with remarkable speed. He improvised solutions using available materials, often combining human tools with alien technology. Each successful maneuver inspired more confidence in the humans among the Violians. Meanwhile, Lyra confronted the faction leaders directly. She moved with unmatched grace and authority, her centuries of experience evident in every step. Yet even she relied on Ethan's guidance, consulting him on the timing of interventions and the coordination of defensive forces. Together, human and vampire, strategist and leader, they became an unstoppable pair combining insight, skill, and foresight. Hours passed, yet Ethan remained focused. Exhaustion was not an option. The humans had proven themselves capable of creativity and courage, and now the true test was maintaining that edge under pressure. One by one, the attacks were neutralized. In each case, humans provided solutions that alien minds had overlooked, demonstrating that while Violians had power, humans brought innovation and adaptability that could turn the tide of any crisis. By nightfall, the assaults had ended. The settlements were safe, the energy flows stabilized, and the rival factions' plans were thwarted. The council gathered to assess the outcome. Skeptics who had doubted humanity's potential were now visibly impressed. Even those who had feared human influence began to acknowledge that these newcomers brought something invaluable to their civilization. Lyra turned to Ethan, her eyes glowing faintly in the soft moonlight. "You have exceeded all expectations," she said. "Not only have you saved lives, but you have shown that humans are capable of rising to challenges that even we considered beyond reach. The balance has shifted. Your people will be remembered as allies, partners, and innovators." He thought of Earth, of the long journey that had brought him here, of the doubts he had once carried about humanity's place in the galaxy. Those doubts now seemed distant, replaced by the undeniable proof that humans could not only survive in this new world, they could excel. In the days that followed, formal recognition was given. The Council issued statements praising humans as a species whose ingenuity, courage, and collaborative spirit could complement even the most advanced civilizations. Humanity's reputation spread quickly across Vyrlia, shifting perceptions and forging new alliances. The rival faction, though still present, had lost influence. Their plots were exposed, their authority weakened by the visible success of human-led operations. Even they had to acknowledge, reluctantly, that humans brought qualities their own species often overlooked: creativity, intuition, and an unyielding spirit that could turn challenges into opportunities. Ethan and Lyra, now fully partners, began to travel across Vyrlia together. Their journey was not only political but symbolic. The union of human and vampire became a living example of collaboration and mutual respect. Communities that had once resisted human involvement now sought guidance and partnership. Humans were no longer outsiders. They were a vital part of the planet's future. During one visit to a remote settlement, Ethan witnessed a scene that filled him with quiet pride. Children, both human and Vyrlian, were learning together, combining human ingenuity with alien knowledge to create solutions to environmental challenges. They built small energy stabilizers, experimented with safe forms of technology, and worked as a team. The future of Vyrlia, he realized, would be stronger because of the human presence. Lyra watched alongside him, a rare smile crossing her features. "This is why I chose you," she said softly. "Not because humans are stronger or faster, but because they can inspire change, think beyond boundaries, and act with courage even when the odds seem impossible. You embody the qualities that can shape not only Vyrlia, but the galaxy itself." As weeks turned into months, Ethan and Lyra's work continued. They mediated disputes, guided infrastructure projects, and fostered cooperation between species. Humans were no longer observers. They were architects of progress, demonstrating that intelligence, courage, and adaptability could change worlds. One evening, Ethan stood at the edge of a crystal cliff, looking out at the expanse of Vyrlia. The sky shimmered with colors unlike any on Earth, yet he felt at home. He thought of the journey that had brought him here, the trials, the challenges, the moments of doubt and fear, and realized that humanity's greatest strength was not technology, nor physical prowess, but the ability to rise, adapt, and inspire. Lyra joined him silently, her hand brushing against his. "The galaxy will watch humanity now," she said. "Others will come, challenges will arise, but you have proven that humans can not only face the unknown but master it. Together, we will guide the future." And he knew this was only the beginning. In the following months, the Council formally integrated humans into Vyrlia's governance. Educational exchanges, joint research projects, and collaborative explorations became the norm. Humans were celebrated for their creativity, resilience, and problem-solving abilities. Stories of Ethan's leadership and the human contribution to Vyrlia spread across the planet, inspiring hope and admiration. Even the rival faction, though still present, began to see the value of human participation. Their attempts to resist were softened by the undeniable results. Humans saved lives, repaired disasters, and demonstrated that even a species young in galactic terms could achieve remarkable feats. Ethan reflected on the journey that had begun with a shocking declaration. Lyra's choice had challenged tradition, expectations, and centuries of perception. Yet through courage, intelligence, and determination, humans had proven themselves worthy. They were no longer outsiders. They were vital partners, their ingenuity recognized as essential to Vyrlia's future. As the twin moons of Vyrlia rose, casting soft light across the crystalline forests, Ethan and Lyra stood side by side. Their union, once a source of shock and uncertainty, had become a symbol of cooperation, innovation, and hope. Together, human and vampire, they had faced challenges, overcome obstacles, and demonstrated that the human spirit could shine even among the oldest and most powerful civilizations. The galaxy had witnessed humanity's arrival, not as weak or fragile observers, but as problem solvers, leaders, and innovators. Ethan knew that the journey ahead would bring new challenges, but he was confident that humans could meet them. After all, they had already faced the impossible and emerged stronger. And in the quiet moments, standing beneath the shimmering skies of Violia, Ethan understood the truth that had carried him this far. Humans were capable of greatness, and together with allies like Lyra, they could shape a future that no one had ever imagined. The journey of humanity in the stars was only beginning, but the message was clear. Intelligence, courage, and determination, the very qualities that defined humans, were a force that could change worlds. And with every step forward, they would prove that even in a universe filled with wonders and dangers beyond imagination, humanity had a place, a purpose, and a light that could never be extinguished.